soon as I can get to this part that says record.
Recording in progress.
Okay. With that, I'd like to welcome everybody to the March edition of the Tips and Tricks SIG Special Interest Group. Our typical format will be open forum, and then we can go into our expanded open subject area where I've sent out topics that we could discuss for tonight. That being said, who'd like to open up the floor with the first question of the evening? Pete, I think you sent out an email to us on something with the videos or something from the YouTube site, and I didn't quite understand that. I echoed back to you, and I didn't see anything.
You must have been. Did I send it?
Broke up real bad, Pete. We can't hear you. Uh-oh. Can anyone else hear Pete? No. Pete, bad connection. We can't understand what you're saying.
Get a new string, Pete.
What?
Yeah. Why don't you try killing your video feed and just have audio? See if that helps.
Or use the chat box.
Try the. Okay, now try
better
talking.
now?
Well, I don't know. Continue talking.
I am talking now.
Okay, we can hear you just fine, Pete. So you were saying.
I was also talking to Tim. What I was thinking, and I don't know who could do it, at the beginning of at least a Linux, to put in a note in the notes or over on the actual web page, a link to the first Linux meeting where we had the instructions on how to load. There's a reference.
Are you talking about an actual first video recording that's on our YouTube site?
Yes.
Not to a particular instance in that meeting session, but to, okay, so where is this? Well, that's on the Linux one. So I guess you'll have to bring that up at the Linux SIG and talk about it there, and Tim can make a reference somewhere.
Because at least on the Linux side, there's a lot of people that have barely got the first one in.
Okay.
Actually, that needs to be redone, the whole
A lot
thing.
of questions on how to proper steps on putting it in. And that one did a real good job at it, and it should be referenced somewhere. The date of that meeting should be referenced back so that you can find it easily.
Yeah, sort of getting started sticky for that SIG. A sticky for that SIG.
Yeah.
So do you know which video that was?
It would be in June or July.
Of this year? 24?
No, 22, I think it was.
22.
All right. Well, when you guys find it, you could just put it in the comments section on any of the videos. Just put it in a comment in there.
Yeah, but on the CCS website, it might be a good idea to have a link.
Good point. Put it into one of the YouTube ones, or send it to me, and I'll see if I can somehow put it on the YouTube, on our website.
Now, what I will do is find out when that was.
Okay.
I think it was July 2022.
Just a second here.
It was the second or third meeting.
I have my oldest Linux SIG meeting notes are from September 2021. It was the end of the month, September 2021.
All right. Well, still, somebody's going to have to track down this particular YouTube video, and then just send me the link to the whole video, and I'll post that on the website. And a thumbs up would help too, right by the commentary, more thumbs up, lots of thumbs ups, and that will help identify it too because of the
Okay.
remote.
Camera.
Okay, that meeting was scrubbed. And so the next meeting would be, I have November 9th as a meeting. Let's see which one that. Um, no, no mention of that, but there is a video which I did download,
Okay.
which is the instructions. So, yeah, we were still doing setup even in November.
I believe there were some that didn't get posted where the video was lost.
Oh, that happens. That does happen. That's why we encourage people to attend our meetings because we can't rely on the fact that the videos are recorded and successfully reposted.
This one was though,
That one was.
because I've referred it to the times. I'm trying to find it.
All right, well, there's no
Myself
pressure.
here.
Again, there's no pressure. You don't have to do it now. Just send me an email when you got it, whenever you find it. Now, that'll work. Got a question is, and I believe everybody in this group, and the only person I can't confirm is with Carl, but is everyone in this group running Windows 11 on their primary machine? Whatever primary machine. So anyone not running it on running Windows 11 on their primary, whatever you call your primary machine.
I'm not.
You're
I'm
not.
not.
So Dennis, and I heard one more say it, I'm not. Oh, just
Peter
just Pete?
is still doing 10 on mine,
Okay.
but 11 at the school.
Okay, that's the school.
Running 11.
Okay, but I'm talking about your primary machines that you're going to use personally. For those that are not running 11, what is your intentions? What are you thinking you're going to do come the end of the year? Are you going to just keep using 10 until you shouldn't be using 10, or what's your thoughts, Dennis?
Well, just to clarify, I use 10 on a machine that I don't connect to the internet other than to download TurboTax and updates.
So you still, but it still connects to the internet.
For a couple minutes.
Oh, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
In a couple of minutes time is a billion years in computer cycles. You know, it's an infinite amount of time. But
Well,
that's not my point. I'm not trying to be a stickler on that.
Well, and then the other machine I use is a Chromebook that I'm using right now, which I have been using for meetings and email.
Okay.
And that's all I pretty much do on this, meetings and email. And then
Right.
I have my Linux machine that Tim converted for me that I'm trying to get going on that, trying to learn some things there. So I'm kind of spread out among some different machines.
Your primary machine that you're using for taxes and other good stuff, you're currently running 10. You have no intention to move to 11 on that one, or is it not capable of going to 11?
If I do anything with that machine, it probably will not be to move it to 11. I may, with assistance, get that converted to another Linux machine, and then
Okay.
buy maybe a cheaper Windows 11 machine down the road.
So that's I guess that was your progression, if you will, is instead of converting your current box, you're going to purchase a box that's going to have 11 already installed on it natively, so you don't have to go through all that.
Yeah, and then that'll become my new financial tax machine, and
Right.
which TurboTax and other software manufacturers will now start supporting. They're going to give up the ghost on 10, and then I'll use it for that, and then go more into the Linux world.
Okay. Pete, what are you going to do? Thank you, Dennis. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, but I was kind of seeing what your progression of thinking was going to be.
Yeah.
You have a
Well, no,
plan?
yeah, no problem. I just don't feel any pressure about 11 at all. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Pete, what are you going to do?
My machine current is not capable of moving to 11.
Okay.
I'm sitting on two Xboxes here that we're talking on right now. And the other one that Tim was helping me a little bit earlier in the month, which is working pretty good for me, Tim.
Okay.
That's working good. I am not for sure what I'm going to do. I think if I have to do an 11, it's going to be a cheaper small box like I have at school, which is plenty strong. And one of these days I'm going to go over there. I'm going to install Autodesk on it, my Fusion license, and see how it works coming out of the box, because that's probably my biggest
Sure.
So the I'm a per box.
Pete, did I see that they were just put some new improvements in Windows 11 to be able to run AutoCAD in the latest update?
It's not that 11 won't, my machine won't go to 11.
Yeah, but I thought AutoCAD was having a problem in 11.
I think Fusion wasn't. Fusion 360 is the one so it's not the full boat.
Well, anyway, there wasn't a notice that the latest update included the ability for AutoCAD to run in Windows 11, which it didn't have before.
So I'm trying to figure out if I even need to keep the license right now, since I don't have the big machine. There's a number of financial things that are in this situation in my head right now. A $600 license is a big bite when it's not bringing in any money.
All right. Carl has his hand up. Carl? Oh, nope, that's me. Never mind. It's my hand that was up. My mouse looked like a hand. I apologize. I did a quick search on what Bert was referring to, and it says Microsoft has removed a compatibility hold that prevented some AutoCAD users from installing Windows 11 2024 update due to launch and crash issues. So it affects AutoCAD 2022 version, but other releases are not impacted. And that just happened.
That sounds like if you already had AutoCAD on your Windows 10 system and you tried to upgrade to 11, you ran into big problems. Versus the other way around. If you've got an 11 machine and you try and install Autodesk on it, it may work just fine.
It is probably because at least Fusion goes back to the Autodesk site
Could be.
every time you confirm your licenses. And depending on where you originally placed the files and where the files are in a corporate area, you might be having a problem.
Usually the only thing that might cause a problem in something like that is firewall for outbound communications.
I noticed that my TurboTax requires me to run under administrator.
That's a possibility, but Autodesk, even if it requires administrator, you can do that in a standard account and give it a temporary authorization to elevate while AutoCAD is running, and then it goes back down to normal. And it's
Yeah.
only for the AutoCAD that gets the elevation. This is standard in Windows. It has been for hell, going back probably to Windows 2000 or NT4.
Yeah, the problem is in a commercial environment where you've got multiple users and your computer is controlled under IT, they will not allow you to run under admin at all.
Right,
So if you're by yourself at your house,
right.
you can do those things. In the business, you can't.
Yeah, but I mean,
That might be the issue that they have. That might have been the issue that they had,
well,
that they
also,
needed to change where
it's
they located a file.
when you are setting up Windows 10, 11, and anything older, just about, you the very first account made is the administrator account. Unfortunately, Microsoft doesn't tell you that. And people think they're just creating their own personal account, not understanding that it is an administrator account. They should only use that for the maintenance of their system and nothing else, and always be running in a standard account they have to create after they initially set up the Windows system. And there's nothing there to tell them that.
So what happens when you're on the business side of things, big IT departments, they give you the machine. You haven't created your account. When you log in, you log in only under an account that they provide. You don't have either you never set up a machine, and you never get admin rights unless you're a very special person. And I know that because until I became the special person for the lab, I did not have admin rights, nor did my boss have admin rights. So if the program requires, if it tries to write a file to certain portions the user drive, it requires admin rights, and sometimes you can't do that in a commercial account. So probably what Autodesk or AutoCAD had to do was change the path for those files to a shared type drive, which the user would then have. I'm going to try camera again.
Well, it's been working okay without it. We don't need to see you. What do we want to see? Oh my God, look it, there he is. See, I thought you were going to show us your tan.
Going up again.
Alan. Wow, there's a face we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, since COVID, I think.
Okay, we're searching for questions from the group for people that have computer problems. None? If not, I also sent out a list of topics for us to discuss. Now, Alan didn't get to see those because he didn't get the email.
Surprised me.
Surprise. Someone want to pull one of the topics out of the list that I sent? I'm kind of getting in this one a little early, but that's okay.
You can talk to the second topic and add for Peter.
Okay, how to clear your cache and why should you? Okay,
And also the third one too after that.
8 reason you're okay. Well, let's do the second one here. What is this? Control click. Bear with me a second. I got to remember how to open this thing.
Letter opener.
Yeah, letter opener would work.
Hammer.
There we go. How to clear your cache and why you should. This is not something I regularly do. Is people in this group use this regularly? The browser cache and clearing it?
Yes.
Yes, I have an extension for it.
Okay. And we could read the article on why it says to do it, but Bob, why do you clear your cache?
There are privacy and security reasons to do so. It's mostly to avoid being tracked all over the place. It doesn't get rid of targeted ads, but it reduces some of them. And it's
Mhm.
all part of my ad blocking strategy.
Okay.
It just makes it more efficient and quicker to get to a web page, to navigate around the web page, to move among links.
So what is the browser cache? How does it get there in the beginning? How does it happen?
Well, for both your benefit and their benefit, websites will place cookies. And this is where it all begins. And now they're able to place much more than just cookies. The cookies only could contain a small amount of data. Now they can place other items onto your local storage, temporarily or permanently, which will contain much more data. It'll be some of your personal preferences and personal characteristics, some of your browser characteristics, your operating system, all the things that go into so-called fingerprinting, and many other things. You can save passwords and they would be not considered part of the cache per se, but it's not a good idea to save them. So I basically clean out everything.
And this
I keep my
applies to
passwords elsewhere.
and this
Go ahead, Tim.
applies to all browsers, not just one. All browsers you have installed. Per machine, if you got multiple.
Firefox was one of the early implementers of having a visible button that could allow you to clear your cache and your history. Later, that spread into the Chromium browsers as people demanded it, but it's mostly through third-party extensions.
Where is this button?
The
Do you
button
know
in
where the button?
Firefox,
Yeah. Do you know where it's at?
the hamburger icon
Okay.
in the upper right,
Okay.
far right,
Yep.
just below
The
that.
hamburger.
Hold
You know
on.
where the
I've got to move
hamburger
my.
is?
There's a
All right.
panel just below that
I
panel.
got
There it
this
is.
one.
And you have history in there, and I think that's the quickest way to get to where your cache is. You can clear recent. There are add-ons that make it a lot more straightforward exactly where
Okay.
this stuff is.
Right there. Clear recent history.
You could, but that might be dangerous as a meeting host.
Okay. So I'm not going to do that at the
By
meeting.
default, it'll clear the last hour, but you can clear for much longer periods, even
Okay.
forever. And yes, it'll be the temporary cached files. And there are web pages that are cached to make navigation quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And you might want to wait until you're done with that website before getting rid of those.
Gotcha.
Also,
Or if there are pages you want to come back to, you can mark those as things not to delete. It's a little tedious, but it's very useful for some sites.
if you have difficulties, whether you realize it or not, connecting to a site you've been to before, and it cannot get a display of the present site, you may be looking at a cached image last stored on your browser. That's what the purpose of the cache is to get all the pieces of the website into the cache and then assemble the proper picture.
And there are ways to refresh the cache beyond just clearing it.
Right.
Refresh the cache. What does you mean refresh the cache?
That gets rid of the stale pages and puts in a fresh copy.
Ah, so you would clear the cache and then go back to those pages and have it re-download them?
Mm-hmm.
That will be slower initially, but it's safer and it reduces the clutter on your computer. And ultimately, all this clutter will slow down your browser experience.
Is it a noticeable slowdown?
Sometimes.
Over time, depending on where you go and what you do, sure,
And
could be.
also how congested the internet is.
Mhm. Yeah, if the internet or your ISP is really congested, especially
Mhm.
with cable rather than fiber optic, you can get some real slowdowns. Also, with the new fixed wireless 5G, you can get slowdowns the same way you would with cable.
So you can do this on your phone too.
I
Sure.
have done it on my Android phone as well.
Well,
Okay.
your phone is a computer. If you use a browser on your phone, it applies there too.
But the universal clear the cache isn't usually presented to you on a phone. You have to do it app by app, or I do the general app settings and clear everything.
Okay.
There is an app for that.
There is an app for that. I like
Yes,
that.
there is. It will basically aggregate all of the cache clearing into a single button.
Sure.
But that can also be powerful. It can also be dangerous. With great power comes great responsibility.
Are you referring to both iPhone and Android with respect to?
Oh, iPhone is a whole different world.
But yes, iPhone too. iPhone, you can clear the caches on it, as well as Android.
A computer that runs a browser has a cache, and it has also a history. That's how the browsers function on any kind of operating system. I don't care what it is, and you can go back to really the original IBM PC. Once you got a browser on there, you had a cache. You ended up with a history, and you ended up with cookies. They didn't all happen simultaneously, but in general, it's where it started, and you kept on going.
Okay, that was a good subject to cover.
One last thing on that subject, you might want
Yeah,
to, when you clear that cache and you log on to your bank, it's not going to recognize you again. You got to go through the whole process of re-identifying yourself to that bank before.
No,
oh, you might have
I
to go ahead.
no, that's
yes
usually
and no.
a cookie that needs to be permanent. If you delete that, whether it's by you manually or through a third-party app, that cookie, then they don't recognize you the next time you log in.
That's
You have to
correct.
go through the security check to prove that you are. They'll put a new cookie on, and if you're using a third-party app, you may keep removing that. But most of those third-party apps, you can go in and find a setting for their cookies and say, this cookie from this site, do not delete it.
So your login information may not be lost,
Right. And
but
that way you don't have to keep going through the security questions after
okay.
you've cleared out the cookies with a third-party app. CCleaner was a typical one of that. CCleaner has a setting though, and I can say, well, my bank is Chase Bank. Do not delete that by putting Chase over into the other. But you got to be careful. Sometimes they put in multiple cookies for multiple addressing, so you may have to move 2, 3, 4 items over the do not delete list.
Also, there are two other things that have come in more recently. Most financial sites now will fingerprint the characteristics of your browser and of each device that it recognizes. And there is something called an app password, which is giving way to passkeys. My bank, for example, knows my device and knows my browser because I go in there with Linux. It's pretty unique. So they don't challenge me, but I still have to do the password, and I may have to try it a couple or three times. I think they stopped sending the message to my email or my phone to verify.
Well, that was insecure, so a lot of financial institutions were trying to drop that particular method of two-factor authentication.
Yeah. So instead, what they're doing is various kinds of fingerprinting, and if your device and your browser and your operating system are unique enough, they'll be able to identify you that way. I, by the way, in teller transactions now, very often, your PIN from your ATM card is part of your identity.
Yes, it is. I can attest that because I went to the bank last week to go do a wire transfer, and they asked for my ATM card, and I was as instead of my driver's license for identification, they wanted my ATM card, and then they had me put my PIN in. So that I thought that was quite interesting. For whatever that's worth. Okay. Um, Anyone else want to discuss this further on cache removal and why you should?
Isn't
Okay.
there also like temporary internet files or something? That's not part of cache, is it, or is it?
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Oh, it is that. Okay.
That's there's two types. Well, actually, more than two types, but your internet cache is a type of temporary file. Every program and the operating system will create temporary files as scratch pads, work pads, to be able to develop something that eventually gets presented to you. The bad part is most of these applications leave a lot of the temporary files around, taking up space, and over time, it can be a significant amount of garbage collected on your system, and it doesn't matter what the OS is.
Well, how do I get rid of those?
Well, you can stick your computer in the washing machine and dryer.
You
There
got
On a
an
are
series,
you got an alternate method?
there are all kinds of cleanup programs, and you can't just use one because um, each developer is an individual or group, and they have a perspective. And therefore, a lot of the tools have different perspectives. They will cover the majority of the stuff between each of them, but each one also finds stuff that the others don't find.
Hmm.
That's why I have always recommended, especially on Windows, having at least three different programs that will clean up old garbage type files.
I can think of two or three I use right off the top of my head,
Yeah,
and they're probably all familiar to everybody.
yeah, and it's just a case where you can't rely upon one single tool to do the whole 9 yards. And part of the reason for that is that whoever developed that one program did develop all the programs in the operating system that you're using. Therefore, you have a problem of trying to clean up other people's leftover trash.
And Windows is worse on this than many other operating systems and ecosystems because you don't have a central place where you find your software,
Right.
unless you stick to the Microsoft Store.
even then, it's not 100%.
No. But then again, with Google or iOS, their stores, I also it's not 100%.
Right. In fact, when it comes to uninstalling programs, we usually recommend Revo Uninstaller. Well, okay, fine. The reason for that is after you do the developer's uninstall application to remove the bulk of the application, you then have an option to scan for registry and leftover files for the same program, and that gets rid of even more garbage. And it's a case where uh, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 97 to 98% of all applications you remove, you got a ton of garbage that you got to clean up. It's only a small percentage that may clear out everything or almost everything and leave very little behind.
Even portable apps will sometimes set up their own local data caches.
Yes, and most portable apps are cross-platform applications between Windows, Mac, Linux, BSD, and maybe some others. And some of those may also work on Android and iPhone. Well, you have that topic number 3. And another one that might be good for some other people is how to secure your home network with 8 simple steps.
Okay, so number 3 was some disconnecting, 8 reasons your internet disconnected and how to fix them.
Right.
Right. And where did that one go? There it is. Yeah, it's right here. Nope, wrong one. We're not looking at that one. We're looking at this one. All right. One of the things is always is where did you place your router? Did I put it in a central location? Do I have it up high in your house, or do I have it down the basement or down on a lower level and I'm trying to reach the upper levels? Placement is, as we know, is important. A congested network is another reason you could have problems. You have too many IoT devices that are cramming for the same 2.4 gigahertz signal, and you have a 5 gigahertz that's not being used, or maybe your 5 doesn't make it far enough in your house because of obstructions. How to fix your network congestion? Good one on here. How do they? Okay, I started on number 1 is where you put the router, and you want to make sure you put it in an optimal location. Does anyone have questions on where to put a router in their house? I can't see hands very well. No? We all know to put it like inside inside our stove or oven or inside our refrigerator. It's going to work best there.
Or your oven.
Yeah, the oven might work really good. Okay.
Microwave will work really well.
Put it inside your microwave.
Yeah, put it inside the microwave and turn it
That's a good
on.
one. You end up with a Faraday cage.
Yeah, Pete would be very familiar with that subject of using a Faraday cage. Right, Pete?
Yeah, I used to have a couple of them.
You had one. I remember you taking me into this room that was a Faraday cage. That was interesting. It was,
Also had the anechoic chamber,
yeah,
the soundproof.
it was a soundproof room, and boy, was it quiet.
That was also an anechoic chamber too. It was shielded and soundproof.
Mm-hmm.
Putting in shielding in and around your house could actually be beneficial from a point of view of not leaking signals and not having your neighbor's signals leak in.
Yeah, so what would we have to do? Put aluminum foil around our whole house?
Yeah.
You can put structural
Well,
elements in which function as Pete was saying something.
aluminum siding and then ground it.
Okay.
Okay, so I have aluminum siding on my house. Are you saying I should ground it now?
Yeah.
If you ground it from the outside, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe your cell phones won't work then either,
Yeah.
unless you try it by a window.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
won't have any cell phone
And if
communication.
you're using Verizon, Google Fi, T-Mobile, and any others that use a 5G Wi-Fi connectivity, good luck.
Well, the solution they've come up with is they have external antennas which sit out on your porch or someplace.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just have sort of a wired backhaul into your house.
So back to this article, one of the things they state here is about rebooting your network. I was curious to see how many people in this group actually reboot their network on a regular basis.
I reboot my gateway, even though it
Okay.
happens automatically at who knows what hour of the morning. It's the
I
ISP's gateway, so they can reboot it when they want.
Yeah, I've actually programmed my router to do a reboot once a week. In the middle of the night, it usually does it like 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And I found that that really does help eliminate a lot of problems just by regularly rebooting it.
I only
The other
reboot
thing-
when I have a problem. That's when I reboot. Not,
Yeah.
not before.
I was doing it when I had a problem, but I thought I'd try this. And so far, I've been doing this for a little more than a month. And I've not needed to go down and reboot my router since I started doing this procedure.
And the other thing is you don't want to wait for when a problem happens. We all know about Murphy's Law.
It always happens when the significant other needs to get something done, or yourself, you need to get something done if you're a sole proprietor.
Well, I use a timer that's a weekly timer
Yeah.
to turn off the electricity when my cats and I aren't using it. And that's in the middle of the night. Like 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning, turn it off for an hour and then turn it back on.
Hmm.
You're ready to go.
So you use a regular physical timer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I could see that work. So you could take down the whole network, your switches, et cetera, and bring them all up at the same time.
Right.
Now, just to be clear, that's not the whole household electricity, just the electronics.
Just
Well,
this network.
You could probably do the whole house, but I don't think you'd want to.
No. You wouldn't have any heat for one thing.
And you wouldn't have refrigeration either, at least for the period of time you leave it off. I leave it off for at least an hour that because of the restrictions of the timer, but also it helps make certain that circuitry components like capacitors and electrolytics in the circuitry are discharged completely. If they're not completely discharged, then you might have some issues still around when it comes back up for normal use.
So to continue on this subject here, it did say about your router being old. Maybe it's time to upgrade your router, or you have old equipment. Could be your router, it could be your modem. Maybe you're running a DOCSIS 3.0 and you should be running DOCSIS 3.1.
Yeah.
Or you're running a very old router that has not been updated in a long time. Those would be another consideration is you may want to purchase a new router. If yours is older, pulling a number out of the air, 8 years, 10 years old, if it's older than that, you should consider buying a new router, especially if it hasn't been updated in a long time, or if it's a TP-Link brand, definitely you'll want to upgrade it.
Even if it is owned by the ISP, they will sometimes, they will eventually tell you, you really ought to upgrade this.
Right.
And
Sure.
I'm in that position too, except I want to wait until I'm actually moving and get the new equipment in my new place.
That's the right idea. Just start from scratch at the new place with the right new equipment.
Well, I don't know about starting from scratch with DVR. I'll have to ask, and I'll have to ask whether the new Comcast equipment, whether the new Xfinity XFi has usable in-home phone service.
Hmm.
They've been talking about cutting back on that. They've also been talking about discontinuing their email.
Okay.
Well, ISP email, I am completely against it because people do change their ISPs either for monetary reasons or what they have to pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. And using an ISP email, well, that means every one of your contacts has to be told, oh, I'm moving from this email address to this email address with a different ISP. That's crazy. Use something like Gmail, Yahoo Mail, even old AOL is still around. At least those stick around and don't have to change unless you happen to desire changing it.
Well, speaking of changing with Yahoo Mail, they've got a new interface and they're forcing it on people this month.
Oh, they've been trying to do that for good 5 years now. New interfaces, and then they want you to go up to a paid version for that versus the classic version, etc. And I tell them, tough.
No, this is the classic, and they have made a really serious change. It all looks like it was made for a smartphone.
Probably was. There's
Yep,
more of that than there is probably the laptop desktop.
and it's a very awful interface if you're using a full size screen and a keyboard.
How often, let me ask, how often should a person go and check the firmware date that's inside their router?
Oh, at least once a year at minimum, but I would say at least twice a year to be safe.
Okay.
You're not usually going to get lots of frequent updates unless there's a major problem in the design of either the hardware or the software. But usually, twice a year is more than adequate, but at least once a year because, like a lot of other things, there's planned obsolescence, and you only get updates for roughly 5 years from the first version of that modem router model being released to the public. Now, you get into
Yes,
business stuff that lasts longer.
yeah. And even if you rent from the ISP during that restart process, it will see whether there's a firmware update, and if there is one, it'll apply it. It just happens automatically and silently. Even your television will have a firmware update once in a while.
Oh yeah, I still get them, and my television sets got to be in close to 15 years old.
And any streaming devices will have firmware updates.
Yep.
Printers. I keep getting updates for my what is it? My Epson printer. Mine's a regular inkjet, not one of the ink tank ones, and it gets firmware updates. So firmware is everywhere, even in your car.
Yep.
Oh, and
When,
I also once every couple of years, you might even in an older computer find a BIOS update.
Oh yeah. Actually, the first 3 years of a given make and model of any computer, even a board that you build your own computer, you should be checking for updates. After that, and I would say just about every 6 months. Uh, And after that, no more than once a year. The reason for that is it's gotten easier. It used to be very easy to brick your computer and not be able to use it again. Well, those days are long over for the vast majority of devices. It's as easy as updating your OS on your smartphone or tablet, and you get a lot of different security patches that apply to the modem router. But more importantly, uh, in a lot of machines, especially the old stuff, you were limited to 1 gigabyte memory modules or 2 gigabyte memory modules, no, I mean four, and then 8 and 16 gig modules, etc., etc. You couldn't go past that if you wanted more memory in your machine. But a BIOS update can give you the ability to support the higher density memory modules. And therefore, you could, instead of getting a brand new machine, just do a BIOS update, get new memory modules that give you the greater capacity. But all computer BIOS have some kind of memory limitation, and new models and or new updates quite frequently expand upon what you can use.
All right. Anyone else want to comment on this? What, it's one of the problems I used to get, which I haven't gotten in a while, is my um, laptops or PCs would that were running wireless would tell me they'd disconnect from the internet. No, it would connect to my router, but it would have no internet. Very frustrating. It's not something I've ever been able to figure out exactly why this would happen, but I believe the problem existed because of my radios would somehow
Yes,
kablooey.
yes.
The solution so far has been this regular rebooting of my router has seemed to eliminate that error showing up on my network. And again, this is something that's happened over years. I've never been able to figure it out. I've talked to Asus and they've never came up with a solution. I've seen it on the forums. This is a current
Well, that's
fix
why
for me.
my modem router is on a timer, because I was having the same kind of a problem. I'm pretty positive it is the radio modules for the 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, and now 6 and coming up 7. Uh, and they're failing, but the ISPs, if you tell them that, they think you've lost all your marbles because they have no means of really testing it. And usually, what they'll tell you to do is to reset your modem router, turn it off, turn it back on. Guess what? The problem disappeared. Well, if the problem continues, it's going to get a shorter and shorter time frame, and eventually you're going to be turning it on and off for 1 second of online access. And it'll take that to get a lot of the ISPs to wake up.
Yeah. Okay. Next question, next subject that's on my list. And it's Pepsi. Pete is saying Pepsi is the new topic. We can't hear you, Pete.
Good.
Pete, he's wanted to fizz us.
The four.
We were supposed to hear that the sound of the sizzes, the sizzling.
No, I muted it out so that you wouldn't hear it.
Oh, how kind of you. Now, we know you weren't pouring rum in there, were you? Okay. Rum and Coke. Okay, next question, new direction.
The
Next
how to
subject.
secure your home security in 8 simple steps.
Implement these steps to protect your home network from cyber criminals like Pete.
I thought it was more like Dennis.
Well, I was going to say Alan could be he's a cyber criminal. You know, we know the guy's got things going on.
Securing the home network. Okay.
Okay. Just making some notes here. Criminals. Cyber attacks. Okay, so they give kind of a quick rundown here. Change your Wi-Fi username and password. So we should not leave it as admin and the login as password, or leave it as blank. We should change that. Isn't that what's the default login on a router?
Usually admin.
Admin. That's right. Enable Wi-Fi encryption. So I'm assuming everybody here has changed the name on their router, and nobody here uses admin.
If you're running a T-Mobile or one of the wireless 5G hubs to get into your place, you can't.
Okay, but you can't change those, is what you're saying?
No, some
Can't
of the
change
ISPs won't let you.
or your password.
Okay.
So if
I
you're
could
running
see.
a hotspot connection going in because how you can get it at the best price for your location, because it's about $200 a month cheaper to do it that way than it is to bring a wire in.
Okay.
And also you have
Where I'm at least.
a lot more people that are using whatever the default name came with, because they don't change that. If they're using cameras and nanny cams, they don't put a password on it that's their own creation, or they're putting on very poor ones like they use on the internet as is.
In agreement.
Right.
Anything beyond that initial device, you should change all your passwords and make wrong.
We all know to also enable Wi-Fi encryption. I'm assuming everybody here is running an encrypted network,
Yeah,
like
well,
WPA or something, WAPA3.
right now you have WPA3, but a lot of devices only support WPA2 still. And
Correct.
that's a case of an update that's needed, sometimes firmware. But on the router, it has to do with how old is your router. It may be so old that it doesn't know what WPA3 is. So you got to have that in order to be able to use it on your devices, if your device itself is not too old and has the WPA3 setup available. Both ends, both devices, the router and each of your connected devices has to have a matching WPA setting. Never use WEP. That was broken decades ago by kids.
So we should never use WEP, WEP.
Little kids have broken that decades ago.
Little kids do it all. They do the worst. We should have, okay, Wi-Fi encryption, set up a guest network, and we could go on that in just a moment. Disable WPS, use a firewall, use a VPN, keep your software updated, and blah, blah, blah. That's the last thing. So we're going back to create a guest network. Why would we want to create a guest network?
Oh, it could be
To give a second avenue of attack network.
You broke up so much, I don't think any of us got that, Peter.
Hey, to give a second avenue of attack to your network, you better have a password on that guest network.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
But
yeah.
at the same time, too, a guest network is if you have a lot of visitors, especially if you were younger and you had kids, the kids bring over their friends with their devices, etc., etc. You have IoT devices nowadays, also known as smart devices, smart televisions, smart refrigerators, washing machines, dryers, you name it, even smart toasters. All those devices should all go through a guest network in order to bypass your internal network that you're using for your computers, your smartphones, etc., and keep nosy busybodies and criminals at bay.
So a guest network will also isolate those requests so they cannot have access to the rest of your network.
That's
They're
right.
not part of your intranet, correct?
Right. You're giving those devices access to the internet because they need it, but at the same time, too, they can't see what you're doing in your own home on your own devices. Their devices, even in your home, would not see that traffic.
How about a hotspot? How does that work in terms
That
of,
that goes
is that
through
the same?
that goes through smartphones or cell service, and that is more secure than ever using public Wi-Fi anywhere.
So a hotspot is basically a guest phone or your laptop that you're allowing other people to use to get to the internet.
Correct.
But they have other access to your system on a
No,
laptop.
they strictly are talking to your phone, and then your phone is sending them out to the internet.
Right. And
If your phone is the hotspot. So if your phone is a hotspot and you have other computers hooked up to that network, I think the question is, can another device see those devices that are connected up to the phone?
I'm sure there are some. They may not be readily available.
They may not be available for sharing, but usually the phone that acts as the hotspot is going to isolate the other devices so they can't see each other, wouldn't you think?
It's supposed to. It's different protocols, different radio frequencies, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why it's more secure than using public Wi-Fi like at a McDonald's, a Starbucks, et cetera,
Yeah,
et
that's
cetera.
that's for sure because the phone is encrypted at 128 bit to wherever your cell towers are. So the information that goes from your laptop is encrypted to the phone, and then from your phone to the tower. It's all encrypted.
Now, number 5 on your list here that's showing disable WPS. If you tell people that most of them will look at you sideways like, what are you, some kind of a nut? And it goes to how lazy a lot of people can get. It's a quick way of being able to link up printers and some other devices to the internet through your router, but it also is a gateway for the criminals. Therefore, disabling it cuts down another avenue for the criminals to break into your network and thus into your devices.
So the WTS, isn't it like using a one button to
Yes.
network your stuff together?
Yep.
And it's a more or less like a,
It's
I
a
don't want to call it a
security.
back door, but it's a
It's
side door.
this has been a security issue for at least 15 or more years, and they still keep doing it. And most of the people, being ignorant of the information, ends up saying, "Hey, this is the greatest thing," because it used to be a nightmare for me to try and get a printer to work right. Well, okay, but you also open the door to criminal access to your network activity and all your devices uh, connected to that router.
No one else want to comment on that? Okay. Let me go back to sharing. I know there was the other thing it said about using a firewall. Not that one,
Yep.
damn it.
You
This
should
one.
have the
Use a
firewall.
firewall.
You should have it on, but the criminals get all the information via the manufacturers practically, and know how to what firewall is running, and then they all figure out how to break in through that firewall and post that information on the dark web.
Hmm.
So how long that firewall gives you protection is debatable, but that's your first line of defense is that firewall. Second line of defense is the firewall in each of your devices that you have connected to the router. And IoT devices have nothing for security.
That's for sure.
Therefore, it's wide open west.
Right. So you do want to make sure at a minimum that your router has a built-in firewall and that it is enabled and turned on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, then the other thing here it says about using a VPN. Anyone want to elaborate on a VPN?
The key feature with a VPN. Okay, I live
Virtual
in
private network.
Hammond, Indiana. Okay, I want to have some privacy, especially at a public Wi-Fi. Uh, from my device to the server that I am connecting the VPN to is encrypted. And it takes very good sophistication and tools by criminals to find out how to get some of your information. But as soon as it reaches the server you are connecting to, it goes out into the general public, but under a different IP address than the IP address in your home. If I have an address of 10.0.0.1 here at home, which you're not going to have, the ISP, the VPN server that I'm connecting to might say the address is 72.123.67.114. And that masks your real address, IP address from your server. But there are ways around that sophisticated hackers can get around to some extent, but it helps at least mitigate a lot of the lower level people trying to feed off the same tree. So it's not an end all be all. In fact, some people I've read and heard recently would say, okay, you live in the United States, connect up to a VPN in a foreign country, not one like Russia or China, Iran, etc., but like say in most of Europe, especially like Switzerland, and basically speaking, before your IP activity goes out as a broadcast on the internet, you are protected all the way outside the United States with that encrypted tunnel. And then when you connect to the places you want to go on the internet, they feed it back to that foreign server that comes back down the encrypted tunnel to your connection.
Okay. Who here in this group uses a VPN?
I use some, not. I used to use it heavily for one reason. The volume of research that I do, uh, your ISP sees everything you do unless you're using a VPN. Then he knows you're active doing something, but he will not know exactly where you're going.
Alan, do you use it because you travel a lot?
I do use it when I travel from time to time. However, I find that it really slows me down, and so I try. At home I don't really use it.
Well, that's always true. VPNs, you do pay a price in speed performance, and but they're not all created equal. In other words, you got to shop around as to how much latency you're going to have. And if you go connect to an overseas one, like say in the UK, because you also want to be able to look at BBC broadcast or something along those lines, or the European soccer games, you're going to pay a big penalty in that speed.
Right. Well, I use NordVPN, which is it's pricey, but it's probably one of the better of them, and they're a little faster, a little less latency, and so that's what I use. But trying to get my wife to use it is impossible. That ain't gonna happen. Um, but I usually have it off most of the time at home. That's just the way I do it.
Most people have two complaints. You brought up one, which is the latency that you can have, and the other one is the price. So a lot of them get a free VPN and don't understand it ain't free. They're
Yeah,
selling your information of what you're doing in order to pay for the VPN
right,
to begin with.
right. That's a problem. So, but yeah, I do have one question though for the group. Because, like I said, during COVID, I kind of stayed away from the groups, including this one. But during that time, I pretty much uh, navigated to the Apple world. So while I still have a PC that I built, I don't use it anymore. I haven't used it in years, actually, uh, and it's a problem. So my question is, of the group here, how many people use? Well, let's start with Apple Computer. Anybody use an Apple computer?
I have one that what I didn't buy it. Somebody that I get some help for and that passed away, and his family knew I helped him and wanted to know if there was any of this stuff that they didn't know what to do with, uh, if I wanted it. It wasn't working at the time, but I got it working, but I haven't touched that sucker in years. I did have one person that was in education at one time that wanted to know if I was interested in an Apple II. I'm not sure what letter it was. And the only thing I would have been interested in getting, if I could, would have been an Apple One.
So I take it that nobody uses an Apple computer in this group.
I use,
No,
I use
there's
an iPhone.
well,
Many of us use iPhones, which are Apple.
we have an at least one board member that uses Apple, and he's going to be looking at having to get a new model because the OS is only supported for 5 years worth of changes, and then they stop. But the computer will keep working, just like XP will still work, 7 will work,
Right.
8
Okay.
will work, 10 will work after October 14th. It'll just keep on going. You're just less secure because you're not getting security updates and you're not getting bug fixes.
Right. Well, I must tell you that the reason I changed is I just got tired of all the hassle. And if I ever had a question, which I did have questions from time to time, and it wasn't always available, to call the group, but Apple's got free tech support, and it's damn good. I mean, it really is good, and it doesn't cost a thing. And that was the main reason I changed over. I don't have any hassles anymore. If I did have a hassle, they fixed it, no problems. And I remember there was a time when I wanted to ask Microsoft something. And they said, "Sure, it's $150, and we'll talk to you." Really? Well,
I do have still 2 Apple Mac Pros from 2011, which means they were obsolete
yeah.
8 years ago or
Right.
better.
Well, you want to keep it running for 7 years is okay. I changed mine out after about 7 years. I just want to have a newer. It doesn't matter to me. I'm okay with that. But I'll tell you one thing that I did find very interesting, a bit of advice I got regarding iPhones. And it's probably applicable to Androids. I don't have an Android, so I don't know. I used to have an Android, but a long time ago. So I was at a security seminar, and the person that put this on was the head of security for J.P. Morgan Chase. Pretty high end, and and the people who were at the seminar were not terribly versed in technology with their phones. And she said, the first thing I want you to do is change your name on your iPhone. Why? Well, she was at some airline lounge, and she related that she was on this airline lounge, and she sees there's someone on a we just talked about it a minute ago, hotspot. And so on an iPhone, if your name is John Jones hotspot, that's name. And he's listening to this person about the next couch, and this person is talking about some acquisitions of some companies, big stuff. And she's listening to this conversation, and she looks up the name of this hotspot. She Googles the name. Sure enough, that's the CEO of this big company. And she talks, excuse me, but you shouldn't be talking about this merger and acquisition, because And the woman turned white. This was an SEC violation. She could go to jail. So the first thing you do is I change the name of my iPhone. My name is now NUNYURBIZNES. None your business. That's my name. And so whenever I call up Apple for tech support, they say, "What's your name?" I say, "None of your business." Oh, that's right. That is your name. Talk to me. So
Well,
I just thought that was a cute story. I think it was a very helpful story. And when you talk about security, I think that's a real good idea.
well, there's another thing too. Whether you have Android or iPhone doesn't matter, and this also applies to the tablet because it's very portable. And that is, and younger generations will not listen to this. They as soon as they hear it, they will. It'll go in one ear and straight out the other, nonstop. And that is when you're not using your Bluetooth, turn the darn thing off. It's leaking information galore. Another one that is I haven't seen yet how to get around it, but generally speaking, your camera and your microphone on your smartphones are providing other people, with all kinds of information. Any private conversation you have with someone, say face to face, out in the middle of nowhere, well, if your phone is turned on, they can pick up the audio from your phone and know everything you're saying. May not be legal in admissible in a court, but there's a lot of information out there that never gets to a court to start with.
Well, if you're wearing a Fitbit or a watch, your Bluetooth is on all the time.
Yep,
That's what it monitors. So that's how it works.
that's
So
correct.
you life is full of choices.
That's correct.
I'm just not that interesting. So
I
I
used
think
to have the watch along with an iPhone. The iPhone battery eventually died, but the watch didn't quite make 3 years and it died.
So, Alan, what you were saying is, for one thing, we should remember to rename our iPhone to something different than
then your
iPhone,
name. Then your name.
than your name. Okay.
You go to
And
you
the
go to
reason you're doing that is so it doesn't show up on somebody's hotspot, or
on
so
your
that they can
hotspot.
see that it says none of your business.
That's my name.
Well, I realize that. That
Under
wasn't what I.
business.
You said the reason that
It shows up on your Apple account under personal information, I believe.
Okay.
And that is your name. Under name, personal information, your name, your birthday, and that sort of stuff. That goes in your
He's referring.
your main setting.
He's referring to personal identification information that could be stolen, and if they get enough pieces, they can start taking out a car, buying a new car, taking out mortgages on your property, stealing property titles that aren't secured.
Well, I'm not saying quite that. I'm just saying if you change your name, your name won't show up on your hotspot.
Right.
What comes up from that is anybody's conjecture.
Well, it's just like Wi-Fi on any other device. I can see all my neighbors for a pretty good distance around me. Some of them have their name, so I know who they are. Other
Right.
people have the device default name. Other people may have their own created name, but it doesn't identify who the people are.
Right. But I'm not saying if I had that neighbor's name that I'd be able to do anything with it anyway. Unless I could, I'm not sure how I'd even get into their system. I'm not a hacker. So I don't know how you could do it. Perhaps someone would know, but I certainly wouldn't.
How about near field communications?
NFC. Let's see, what do we have on?
So that would be cloning your credit card, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, that's I call it pay as you go. Instead of pulling out your credit card, you have the credit card information in your wallet on the phone, and then you tap it at the checkout, like you might do a credit card, and it transfers the information. It's a radio transmission, low speed. Um, that's, I think, 30 inches distance, maximum distance. And even there, uh, 30 inches doesn't seem like much, but I would turn NFC off when I'm not using it for checking out and turn it on just before tapping that uh, credit card phone tap feature. And then as soon as the transaction has taken place, I'd turn NFC off. Uh, Bluetooth is also slow speed, but not as slow as NFC, but it has a range of 33 meters, and a meter is 39 inches, so you can multiply it out. And then you get into Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz, which I think is around 150 meters. And if you go higher into like 6 gigahertz and 7, it gets shorter and shorter. Whereas 2.4 has a range of around 300 meters. But who
People
wants to
used
use?
to talk about, having a wallet with, that was, had foil on it or whatever to be able to stop anybody nearby from grabbing information off your, your credit cards or whatever else. Uh,
The wallet apps exist on all smartphones and non-smartphones. Right now, if you get into your Windows 11 and you go into browser settings and you go near the top of the left-hand column, you're going to get personal information. And part of it, if you really look at it, it'll start saying wallet, so that it's like a personal wallet of encrypted information you put in, and it decrypts it only when it has to send it out.
I think what Bert was talking about was the metal filmed wallets that form a Faraday cage around your cards.
That's
to
just for the card
protect
itself. That's just for cards itself. It's not for the phones. NFC is used by the phones.
It's used
Yeah,
by all kinds of devices.
yeah,
Yes,
you wouldn't want to make a Faraday cage around your phone.
yeah.
No,
Well,
no, because you
there
you
are people that'll do it, but they do it so that the device is safe when it's not in use,
Yeah,
and that's all.
that's true.
Also, when they're committing a murder and they don't want to be tracked, they can put it in.
they just use a disposable phone.
But I don't think you can show
Yeah,
up NFC on an iPhone.
if
I just did a search on NFC. There's no button to turn off an NFC on an iPhone.
Let me check. I'll be back in 5.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a button to turn it NFC on the
it's supposed
phone.
to
You
be,
cannot directly turn off NFC on iPhones.
Okay.
It's always on. It is essential for Apple Pay and name drop. However, you can disable specific features, such as Apple Pay, by double-clicking the side button.
yeah, you have to be careful. NFC can be a leak, just like your microphone and camera can. if you're a person who is like a lot of women in particular, carrying their phone in their hand all around, well, anybody with enough smarts can access that camera along with the microphone. It'll act just like a webcam camera for other people, and you have
No,
no privacy.
Andrew, good.
And also, too, this somewhat applies to location. Do you really need to have dead accurate GPS location information? In most cases, no. And even if you got the GPS turned off on your phones, guess what? Other people, companies, everything you connect to knows approximately where you are at. They may also know your ISP and be able to backtrack to what IP address your device is using with that ISP.
So we should just stay home,
Only if
Now
you're in a
on
Faraday cage.
or we should just leave our phones at home.
on Android, you do have the ability to turn off its NFC. There is a toggle for that. But Apple, in their infinite wisdom, did not put that in.
I will say the NFC in the Apple iPhone works pretty darn good when you want to share files between two phones. You just basically tap them together, and the transfer speed is faster than any other way of sharing files. It's just incredibly blazing fast, how fast you could send a video or a file between the two phones with their NFC.
And even sharing a password.
Yeah, you could share passwords.
Very,
Uh,
I'm very impressed with
yeah, it really is impressive because my son has helped me set things up on my phone, and I'm going, oh crap, I don't remember all the passwords on how to get into that account. He goes, yeah, no problem, Dad. And boom, 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 and we're sharing them. It
Yeah, so
works.
it's probably using the same rotary antenna coil that it uses for the magnetic pickup to charge.
Yeah, it could very well be the same thing in the back.
That's a pretty big coil back there, and a coil doesn't care what frequency it's running over. It's just a matter of what's connected to on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Research tells Tesla, not the car, the person.
Okay. The real Tesla.
The real Tesla.
Nikolai.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, shall we go on to a new subject? Pick another one from the list. Carl, are you still there?
He probably
Oh,
dozed
Carl's
off.
sleeping.
Took a nap.
He's taking a nap. Okay, we're kind of running down. If we don't have any other subjects to talk about, I'll conclude the meeting for tonight.
Oh, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Some of us seem to be rather paranoid about getting your credit cards hacked. And I propose another interest group, how to do all this stuff. I would love to know how to hack credit cards, how to clone car fobs, and we're all worried about this. Nobody knows how to do it. None of us know how to do it. I think it would be a great interest group to have a hackers interest group, just because it'd be interesting to learn about how to actually do this. You don't have to do it. I belong to a lock pickers group called the Lock Sport. Lock picking is a sport. I don't break into my neighbor's house unless I'm asked, which I have been asked actually when they got locked out. But just because you learn how to do something doesn't mean you necessarily do it. But the more you know about it, the more you can protect yourself, and the more that you can.
Doesn't mean you're up to something nefarious.
Yeah, I mean, I took a road trip. I just got back from a road trip yesterday, and there was a point
Anyone?
where someone broke into my car. I thought they had a cloning device in their hand because where there was cameras all over, I could see everything,
Well,
and it wasn't really clear. So I called up the manufacturer of my car and said, "Hey, could they have cloned this key because they got in?" And it turns out that after looking at the video, I noticed that I have my cars set so the mirrors turn in and fold up when the car is locked. And I looked at those, and I must have not locked that car because my wife was diddling around with it, was slow getting out of the car and didn't lock it. So now I have it set to automatically lock whenever I leave. So I guess that's NFC with my phone. It knows as I'm gone, or the keys, and it locks the car automatically. That's set. But the point is, I didn't know if they could clone this car. Now, the manufacturer said they can't. And they were looking at the data. They said, we can't share the data with you, but they can't. But it'd be nice to know if you're walking around, you see a guy with some sort of machine in his hand, what that machine is and what it does. And, it'd be nice to know that stuff. So
There are illegal devices which can break into certain models.
yeah.
And there are some that are much more vulnerable than others. I will, for security reasons, not mention them.
there are more and more new model cars you lock and unlock with your cell phone. Okay. Well, if you don't think that's a high security risk, well, I hope you got real good auto insurance.
They do.
Insurers will actually charge you more money for some of those cars.
Well, they
They
have
do
to.
have a higher rate of theft.
That's right.
By the way, as far as a legitimate copy of your car fob, I just had this done because the maintenance people where I'm moving into need to be able to move cars when it snows. And so I went to the dealer, $400, and they had to take about an hour to key it into the computer for the car. And I still, for about 2 weeks, had a little notice on the dash every time I started up that said, a new fob has been created.
And if you only had that little device, you could have given them for $30.
No.
Just say $400.
Bob,
My car,
yours is a Toyota, right?
yeah, mine's a Prius Prime.
Okay. So,
Its biggest problem is that the charging is inconsistent.
but if I may, it's a Toyota. And what
Yeah.
what it's going to get at is I went into a similar problem when I wanted to get an additional key fob made. I actually had to go through a dealer with that, a secondary place. I called around, I talked to locksmith. I went to those places that say, oh, we can do key fobs. Every one of them said Toyota. No, it has to be done at the dealership.
They can make it, but they can't enter it. They can't register it.
Correct. They can't register it correctly with the vehicle. So,
and if anybody does register it, you will know if it's legitimately done,
right.
Because you will see that message for about 2 weeks.
Right. And my Toyota is a 2015, so it's not like the latest and greatest.
No, they've been doing this since at least the 2020,
Right.
2010.
So that's why it's reflecting on is it's the vehicle itself. Maybe some have barriers, some don't.
There are certain brands that are notorious for being less careful about that. And it's been all over the news, so you can look it up. But in a Zoom meeting, I don't think we should say anything about it.
No.
It's already known by those that are the ones doing it.
Yeah, I'm just talking about Zoom's rules about things.
But it's as far as that goes, when you're going for a new or used car, one of the first things you need to do, besides figuring out what you want to buy, is talk to your insurance company. what's this going to cost me? Because you may get sticker shock on the insurance.
Yes, you will, especially the way rates have been going. I concur.
Gonna get worse
It's only going to get worse. It's never going to get better.
because fewer and fewer people can afford insurance, and they're gonna go uninsured, and your uninsured
Oh,
motorist
they-
that
Right.
ride.
Those
Right.
rates have been
So-
going up for 5 or 6 years, nearly exponential rates.
And that has to do a lot with the technology and the computers that are in the vehicles these days and how expensive it is to repair or replace any of that with all the modules and stuff.
Well, you know what the repair problems are. Two of them with electric vehicles, anything you have to repair is going to be expensive. And if you get any damage to the electronics or the battery pack, that's pretty much fatal to the car.
Mhm.
But have you noticed how the front is no longer a bumper? And there are some
disappeared decades ago.
and there are some cars that it's actually part of the whole body. There's unibody construction, and it's all ABS plastic. But if you hit it the right way, it'll just shatter. I just had about $1,300 worth of damage from just running up on a curb and slightly displacing the bumper. It detached a whole panel, a whole corner panel. So that was like about a quarter panel that had to be replaced.
Yeah.
Moves all the sensors around, and the sensors don't work. It's got to be pretty precise for these sensors to work.
I don't have those sensors because the car that it happened to was a 2020 model year. Today, you would have sensors in there as well.
You would.
And you would have to get everything lined up just right. There are body shops that can do it, but it costs a fortune.
Okay, we need to stay on subject here so we can go any last topic somebody would like to pick out of our list. No?
Hmm.
Then I will stop recording and